Michael Jackson has been dead for over 15 years, and in that time, his music has made more money than almost any living artist on the planet. But here's a question almost nobody can answer. Who actually controls it now? Who decides when a Michael Jackson song gets used in a movie? Who signs off on selling his catalog? Who's cashing the checks on Thriller, on Billie Jean, on Beat It right now, today? Because the answer is not his kids. It's not really his family at all. In fact, Michael's own mother went to war in court to stop what happened to his music, and she lost. The truth is, control of the King of Pop's empire runs through two men most fans have never even heard of: a Japanese corporation and a family trust that, incredibly, still isn't fully funded to this day. So let's follow the money and the power and figure out who really owns Michael Jackson now. If you like the real story behind the legend, hit subscribe. Let's get into it. When people say Michael Jackson's music, they're actually talking about a few different things. And this matters, so stick with me. There are the master recordings, the actual recordings of his songs. There's the publishing, which is the rights to the underlying songs and compositions. And then there's a separate catalog called MeJack, which holds songs Michael wrote, plus a bunch of classics by other legends that he owned. And on top of all that, Michael was also famous for owning other people's music. Back in 1985, he bought the ATV catalog, which included most of the Beatles' songs, for around $47 million. It was one of the smartest business moves in music history. So when we ask who controls his music, we're really asking who controls this entire empire of recordings and rights. And the answer starts with two names. When Michael died in 2009, his will put two people in charge of everything. Not his mother, not his children. Two men he named as executors: his longtime lawyer, John Branca, and a music executive named John McClain. These two have run the Michael Jackson estate for over 15 years. And here's the thing, they've been staggeringly good at the money side of it. Under their control, the estate has earned more than $2 billion. Michael was reportedly drowning in around $500 million of debt when he died. They wiped it out and turned his name into one of the most profitable brands in entertainment. So legally, the people who control Michael Jackson's music are the executors of his estate, not the family, the executors. And that distinction is the source of a bitter, years-long fight. But there's a fresh twist here. In May of 2026, John McClain passed away. So one of the two men who held the keys to the entire empire is now gone, which raises a real question about how that control gets handled going forward. Now, controlling the music and owning the money are two different things. So who's it all actually for? According to Michael's will, everything flows into something called the Michael Jackson Family Trust. The main beneficiaries are his three children and a number of charities. Michael was smart about it too. He set up the trust so his kids would get their inheritance in stages, at ages 30, 35, and 40, instead of all at once. But here's a detail that genuinely shocks people. More than 15 years after his death, that family trust still hasn't been fully funded. Because the estate has been tangled up in court, over taxes, over lawsuits, over disputes, the money hasn't fully transferred into the trust the way Michael intended. So in the meantime, the family, including his mother Catherine, has been living off an allowance paid out by the estate. She's reportedly received over $55 million since Michael died. But an allowance is not the same as control. And that difference is exactly what blew up into a massive legal battle. Here's where it gets dramatic. In 2024, the executors made a historic move. They sold half of Michael Jackson's music, the recordings and the publishing, to Sony. The deal valued his catalog at around $1.2 billion, possibly more, with Sony paying at least $600 million for its share. It's widely reported as the biggest deal ever for a single artist's music. And Michael's mother, Catherine, tried to stop it. She went to court and argued that selling her son's music betrayed his wishes. She said Michael had told the family his catalog should never be sold, that it should stay with them, not get handed to a corporation. Michael's kids initially backed their grandmother, but the court sided with the executors. The judges ruled that Michael's will gave Branca and McClain broad power to sell estate assets, with no exception carved out for his music. Catherine appealed. In August 2024, an appeals court shut her down for good. The sale went through. So think about what that means. Michael Jackson's own mother fought to keep control of his music in the family, and the legal system told her no. The men Michael appointed had the power, and they used it. Let's put the whole picture together. The company Sony, now Co., owns half of Michael Jackson's recorded music and publishing, in a joint venture with his estate. Sony has actually been Michael's business partner for decades. Remember that Beatles catalog Michael bought? He merged it with Sony's publishing back in the 90s to form Sony/ATV. And Sony eventually bought the estate's stake in that for around $750 million. Over the years, Sony has paid the Jackson estate more than $2 billion in various deals. A smaller company, Primary Wave, holds roughly a 10% slice of his publishing. And overseeing the estate's remaining half, and the whole operation, are the executors Michael named in his will. So here's the real answer to the question. Who controls Michael Jackson's music today? Not his children, at least not yet. Not his mother, who tried and failed. The day-to-day control sits with the executors of his estate, working alongside Sony, the corporate giant that now Co. owns the catalog. His kids are the ultimate beneficiaries, the people the money is meant for. But the power to decide what happens to Thriller, to Bad, to his entire legacy, rests with the estate and its corporate partner. It's a strange truth. Michael Jackson spent his life obsessed with owning music, famously outbidding everyone to grab the Beatles catalog, because he understood that owning the songs was owning the power. And yet, in death, his own music slipped partly out of his family's hands and into a corporation's over his mother's objections through a deal worth over $1 billion. His children will inherit the fortune. But the control, the real say over the King of Pop's empire, belongs to the men he trusted with it, and the company he did business with for decades. Whether that's exactly what Michael wanted, or a betrayal of it, honestly depends on who you ask. So tell me in the comments, do you think Michael's music should have stayed in the family? And if you want more deep dives like this, hit subscribe, because there's a lot more coming.